Welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila, and I have my co-host, Andre, in the studio with me today. Welcome, Andre.
Hello.
Big stretch.
Yep.
Let's
getting
do
the
this.
blood moving.
Today we want to talk about, the real estate market in general.
What shapes real estate?
What shapes real estate? Why we buy and sell homes.
Yep.
How different things affect why we buy and sell homes.
Yeah, how trends are kind of formed.
Yeah. So today we're going to touch on all of that. And one of the biggest reasons why we kind of got to this topic is that, one, there's a lot of change that's happened in the industry. So it can seem really foreign. Like, what people want out of a first-time home purchase is totally different. What people want for retirement is very different than what it used to be.
Yep. Yeah, and legislation has changed really fast.
Oh,
Market conditions have changed pretty quickly, at least here in Kelowna and in the Okanagan and kind of BC wide. So there's
the cost of living and economy in general what's going to happen politically is wondering. I know I have a different feeling about it every day these days.
Yeah, it feels like we got through COVID and then we're in this post-COVID time and everything's still not really certain. Like we think back to the days.
Almost more uncertain than it was in COVID.
A little bit, yeah. In COVID, at least you knew, hey, I'm going to stay home today and I'm going to do some work or pretend to do work. And then I'm going to watch this show that they keep on releasing, Yeah. Now that's not even happening anymore.
And we had money in the bank.
Yeah, people had money in the bank. So I feel like nowadays it's a little more uncertain than it was. And especially when we look at, the 2016 days, that feels like that smooth sailing gravy train compared to today.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, and one thing that these times can do is they can stop you from executing on long-term goals. And when that comes to housing, it can be very detrimental. It really can draw a line in long-term security and wealth for your future family.
Yep.
Versus not having that down the road.
Yeah.
So I guess the big thing is, let's start with the landscape of a real estate market. You have people buying. People move.
Yep.
Life changes. Even in a market like today where there's lots of inventory, and it's really cool to see the purchasing numbers coming up in the first couple of months of this year. Highest number of sales over last year. Really nice to see, people are out there buying. But why are people buying? Andre, why do people buy houses?
I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why. You've got your, I think there's multiple segments, but you got first-time home buyers. So these are your young families, young professionals, couples, single people, whatever. First time into the market, they're picking something up. They want to be homeowners. Again, for that security, for that kind of forced bank account, forced savings. You've got investors who are buying to rent out properties or speculate. You've got families moving around. You've got different employment centers in different cities, and so that creates movement. So that's generally what drives the buying pool.
Well, there's really significant life changes that people are like, that's it, I got to move, right? Or I got to buy something. One is the first-time home buyer, that person that has the priorities and been instilled the mindset to purchase a home, right? Which it takes a lot of discipline.
Yes.
Especially nowadays, our younger generation, they have a lot of options, a lot of places to spend their money. And to choose to hone in and make that first time home purchase, that's a big deal. So cheers to you guys out there that are making that a priority.
Absolutely.
Second is I have been in my home. I've gone through the roommate stages. I'm getting married. Maybe I get a secure job offer somewhere. I have had children. So whatever I have bought is just not working for me, and I'm busting at the seams and I have to go. Job relocation's a big one.
Yeah.
Like that just quickly makes you have to move and go buy something somewhere else. And then there is the downsizing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Which I think we'll start to see that trend move away from, because I don't think people are buying these gigantic houses like they used to buy them.
Yeah. But I mean, those trends, we'll see play out in 20 years from now.
Right.
Yeah,
20, 30 years from now,
I think
that'll start to shift.
The baby boomers that are going to be retiring and downsizing, it'll be interesting to see because we have so many. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I don't know if like retirement communities is necessarily the option that a lot of people follow.
I can't wait. Actually, cruise ship, I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just 365 days on a cruise ship. Great medical care out there.
Yep.
Have my rental properties pay my monthly expenses.
It's not a bad idea, actually.
I also think we should have retirement centers for our singles, our young singles. Like, how great would it be to live in a building that has ping pong and pickleball and lunch, breakfast, and dinner, and you just pay all into the pot. And I think that would be cool. That would be a cool change.
Stuff like that's coming out, right? Where you're essentially sacrificing your own living space to get increased amenities. So you're paying the same rate. You have a smaller living space, but you have more amenities. So that's a trade-off I think I'm seeing a lot of in the market, especially with my renters, because, we have people who value having more space where they can be at home, like space in their unit. And then there's the flip side where you have people that are fine with the 300 square foot micro suite as long as their building has certain amenities. So it's kind of a give and
take.
Or
location. They're close to things.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like change. It's changing.
Yeah.
You used to, if you look at the 80s, they built the exact same house 100,000 times over. And now it's just, we're in this, there was so many options through the 2000s of what you could do with customization and custom home building.
Everybody went custom.
And now it's even shifted again.
Yeah, where it's almost more standardized yet again.
Well, price, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, affordability.
Yeah. Affordability has become a huge question. We'll touch on that a bit later in the show as well.
Yeah, and then the other, and you touched on this already, is like investors.
Yeah, they're
investors
the other buyer
coming
pool.
And buying.
Yeah.
And some people there's a perception that investors are driving up the cost of housing. And I think there's a case for that in some very unique circumstances. But if you don't have investors in a real estate market, you could stall a real estate market.
Yeah, usually new stuff doesn't get built when the investors pull away. And we saw that in the Okanagan especially, with rates that went up, legislation that was unfavorable towards the investors. They kind of cut out that whole buying segment. And so a lot of new stuff that would be picked up by investors didn't end up going through.
Well, and a lot of new product is created because of investors, not because of the traditional buyers we just talked about.
Yeah.
One really great example of that is old houses that need to be torn down, right? So investors, and this is also a good strategy for first-time home buyers too, but investors would go in, they would buy that, demolish it, probably build a bit more on the land because zoning has changed, and or renovate, fix it back up, right? Yep. This is what real estate investors do with inventory out there.
Yep.
The other one is condos, pre-purchasing in condos, and there's a lot to talk about that topic.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we'll catch off with next.
Sure.
So we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about investors and how they help create housing inventory. Welcome back to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila. I've got my co-host, Andre, with me here today.
Hello, hello.
And we are talking about what shapes a real estate market. And so the last segment, we were just talking about the different types of people out there buying and why they buy, because you need buyers in every market.
Yep.
Just to sum it up, you've got your first-time home buyer. People are focused on creating that housing security for themselves for their lifetime. Of course, that first place you usually grow out of, and or there's a job offer where you want to be somewhere else, a different location. So that's second move. And then typically retirement looks a little bit differently than that time of life.
That's
so we've heard downsizing a lot. So downsizing happens. And then there is investors that come in and purchase old houses that need to be renovated, properties where it's now time for the home to be torn down and have that property redeveloped
into new units. Yep.
Yeah. And then we were just talking about right before the break is larger projects. Now, one thing people may not know is that in order for a larger project to take off, a condo building, even a large townhome project. And of course, it depends on how much money you have. But even if you have lots of money, people like to use other people's money in investing, banks' money. So you typically need to have a certain amount of these units sold, pre-sold, from a concept drawing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And a lot of the times it's half, 50%.
Around there, yep.
And really, like, what you're doing is you're going to the bank with a business plan, a business idea. This is what I want to build. And the bank's going, okay, prove it, get people to buy it first, and then we'll put the money up for it.
Yep.
And now, in that scenario, one, it's not built yet. So you're 2-3 years out, potentially, from moving into this. So our real estate, typical buyers, our real estate market is, a 3-month turnaround, usually. I am looking for a place to live. I go out, I find a place to live. I have a period of time to do my financing and figure out, learn about the property, make sure that's what I want to buy. I remove my subjects, and then there's typically, 6 to 8 weeks before you move in, because the other people have to move out and everything's got to get sorted out with the banks and the lawyers, right? So usually it's a 3-month cycle, and then that person you bought your house from, they have now closed on their offer on something else, and they're moving to something else. So the thought of buying something that is not going to be ready for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, it's a harder pill to swallow for some people.
And it doesn't fit in that system.
Yeah.
Right? And so the buyer pool for that is going to be limited. And that is where real estate investors of all different shapes and sizes come in, and they'll say, okay, you know what? I think that this is going to be a great rental building for rental property in the future. That I'm willing to say, yes, I'm going to buy this, even though it's not going to be ready for a few years, and then I'll turn it into a rental. Or some people might be pre-thinking for children, that they, they've got teenage kids, so they buy a condo in a or a townhome in a pre-purchase, intending for them to utilize it.
That's right.
And the other thing is that people, and this is more risky, but people are like, okay, you know what? It's not going to be done for 3 years. It's probably going to go up in value 5% each year.
They're banking on the appreciation.
And then I'm going to sell it before it's done. So, I put my $50,000 deposit up now, and then I sell it at the end for $50,000 more.
Yep.
I double my money in that 3 years. And that's been branded as flipping, right? Condo flipping.
Speculation. Pre-sale flipping. Yeah. Stuff like that.
And in a larger market like Vancouver, where you've got a machine chugging along and you're not seeing ups and downs like you can see here in the Okanagan, I can see why that would be really catch on.
Yeah.
Be quite popular.
And to touch on the larger market, idea, right? So Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, the thing that those cities have different than Kelowna is they have a larger employment and industry base, right? So you've got people, you've got more jobs there, you've got specific industries, you've got factories, you've got manufacturing plants, like you've got work for people, and so it automatically drives more people in for those employment opportunities. In a place like Kelowna, although we've seen crazy growth,
Yes.
we don't have that established industry here yet. We have obviously seen, jumps in the tech sector. We've seen the hospitals and stuff like that are
Universities.
still, universities. Those are huge employment drivers.
Expansion of the airport.
But they're not quite at the level to create that stability in a market that always keeps that machine churning of real estate being bought and sold.
And which means when there's ups and downs,
you feel them harder here. Yeah, the ups are more because, again, we don't have so much inventory. So when it is a boom cycle, that inventory runs out and your prices go a lot faster upwards. But when prices go down or when the market stagnates, you don't have that constant flow of money turning hands, real estate exchanging hands. And so you have higher ups and downs.
Yeah. And I guess to sum up the investor's place in the real estate market, we need investors. So the more legislation that continues to be restrict people from making money in the real estate market, which is a various of things, taxes, capital gains, reducing the profit margins to buy, renovate, and sell a house. Airbnb,
like limiting what you can do with your property.
And speculation tax. All these things have made it harder in BC specifically to invest in real estate. And investing in real estate is what creates new inventory. And surprise, surprise.
When you don't have investment, you don't have new inventory, and then you have a housing shortage. Oh, look at that.
Whoa. Yeah. So it's the reason why we're talking about this topic today is that we have done a bunch of research into building in other provinces lately because it's challenging to build here in the Okanagan.
It is.
The cost of construction is high because of our cost of labor costs. There isn't as much competition for labor. People are not available.
No
materials,
but on the labor side too. I mean, you've got crews from out of province coming into BC and essentially lending other companies their crews because there's such a shortage of the labor force here. Materials as well,
right? No one is making countertops here, right? They're made somewhere else, they're shipped here. We're not making faucets here. We're not making windows here. I believe there isn't a window manufacturer, maybe. Well, I don't think there is, but there's some cabinet manufacturers here.
There are.
We do, but we're not typically manufacturing a lot of our products here. They're all being shipped in, and that adds expenses to it. So, and there's a huge talk around affordable housing and how we bring down the cost of housing. But even outside of labor and materials, BC has one of the highest building codes. Highest standard of building codes across the country. They have the highest energy efficiency codes across the country. This all adds layers of experts you need to have involved. Structural engineers, energy advisors, the list goes on and on for just a single family home.
And I mean, like, that's the cost drawback. On the flip side, the houses and the new product that gets built in BC is, on these objective terms, better than anywhere else in the province. I mean, we have
Canada.
Yeah, we have leading design and build of homes, mechanical systems, insulation systems, like all of these things are better here, but that just comes with
costs more.
It costs more. It just costs more. We're
gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna come back, and we're gonna talk a bit about some cost differences between the provinces. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila. I've got my co-host with me today, Mr. Andre. Thank you for coming.
Hello. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, yes.
Always.
Today we've been really just bouncing back and forth the landscape of what shapes real estate.
Yep.
And who's buying, why they're buying, why investors are important to have buying in the market. So when we create legislation, we're restricting investors that then create new housing into the marketplace. So that is one of our challenges that we have right now in BC with producing new product. The other thing we were talking about is, the costs of building in BC. A lot of it has to do is we do have one of the, and I referred to it as highest, but I guess most detailed building code.
Yep.
That runs in line with energy efficiency to create the best buildings in Canada, really.
Yep.
But all of that comes with a cost. And right now, it's not a choice to do in BC. You have to do it, right? And so that's based on, the political parties we have been electing in the past and showing what our priorities are as homeowners and people who live in British Columbia, right? Why are you laughing at me?
Yeah. It's pretty 50-50 on what people want, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, and it's been, I think why we wanted to talk about this today is we've spent a bunch of time recently looking into the cost of building in Alberta.
Yeah. For me, the challenge really comes down to mixing the words affordability and energy efficiency, or high-end, like high detailed building code, because it's very hard to do something that's affordable for your people that want affordability, but also to be, industry leading, Canada leading in terms of design and efficiency and energy efficiency and all these things, because you run into conflicts between the two ideologies. And so I think that's a challenge people have been seeing as construction costs rise and the cost of housing keeps on rising. It's this tug of war between affordability and also making products which are energy efficient and leading in terms of design.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason why there is a development permit is for the city to approve your design.
Exactly. So it's just it's a challenge that has kind of been in the province over the last 10 years or so. It's created some very beautiful homes, some really energy efficient systems, but it's also increased the cost of building to where now, things are more unaffordable because that's the direction that we've chosen to go. Yeah, it's the new standard.
Yeah. Like the 80s box house, I have mentioned this home in previous shows too, and it's what I call it. I don't know if it's what anyone else in the world calls it. But
the split level.
Yeah.
Your standard
80s,
bungalow.
I think they might even started building them in the 70s too. I could probably be wrong, but
could be.
It's a box. It has a deck over top of an open carport, unless someone has built in the carport since they've owned it to make it a garage. You usually go down a driveway into a concrete area, so you walk into your basement that's half out of the ground. Split level stairs. And you've got kitchen, living, dining upstairs, and you either still have that wall in the middle, or someone has cut a window into it, or they have taken it down.
Yeah, and I mean, like that design, right? It was a reflection also of the time in the 80s. As we know, interest rates were really high. Things were unaffordable. I'm doing quotation marks because it's hard to look at today versus the 80s, but
all relative though.
All relative. And so that design, you see it copy pasted everywhere because it was affordable. And so that's the direction that the market went in order to combat that affordability crisis that was happening at that time.
And we couldn't build that house today.
Oh, yeah, no.
They
You wouldn't get approvals from any level of government or energy efficiency or anything, really.
Yeah. So,
which is sad to see because
yeah.
on one hand, like, they're good houses. People
lots of
live
people
in
are
them.
living in them
Yeah,
every
people live
day
them-
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
they may not like their power bills,
no,
but I'm
that's
telling you,
true.
Fortis has tons of rebates right now if you want to do those upgrades.
That's true. Yeah.
But really, I mean, we need to get back to some replicatable boxes.
Yeah. Like, a home is what you make it, not necessarily how it's built.
Yeah. And this desire to, you know, not have the same house replicated over and over again down the street. There are subtle changes you can make to them. But honestly, that's kind of the more energy efficiency becomes more of a priority, which it has in construction, the more boxy our houses are going to continue to become. Because you just can't hit these codes that you need to hit with all these big jogs and jet outs and walls of windows. You literally can't do it.
Yeah.
So that will be going back into more of a boxy style build.
And technology will improve as well. So then we're going to see another shift when, you know, we see big technological advances in terms of building design systems.
Yeah.
That might make those things palatable. But again, it's going to come with a cost. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the differences between here and Alberta.
Okay.
What have we found?
Well, I think the biggest thing we found is that it's about a 40% difference in construction costs
Yeah.
to build there, which it takes me back to.
And keep in mind, this is more so Edmonton than Calgary.
Right. We've specifically been looking at the Edmonton market.
Yeah.
And it takes me back to pre-COVID, like what, 2018
Yep.
pricing?
Yep.
And land costs is in and around, and let's give apples to apples. We're talking about building fourplexes on inner city lots. Lands, you could pick up land for anywhere between $300,000 and $400,000. And this is if anyone remembers when RU7 came out into the marketplace.
Like 2017, 2016, around there.
And this is when they changed a zone through the downtown over to the hospital area from Richter to Gordon. And it was all old single-family homes in this area. And they went to RU7, which was a fourplex zone, the first time they kind of introduced this mid-sized density into the city.
Yep.
I mean, you could buy those houses for $250,000.
Exactly.
$300,000.
Yeah.
And so people would buy them. They could build the fourplex on there, and you could still sell off those units at, you know, $550,000, $600,000 each. Like, that's a really affordable play. This is like 8 years ago.
I know.
Now that property is $1 million.
Yep.
And that build is, I don't want to say it's double,
No, I don't think it's double, but it's definitely more.
1.5 times.
Yeah, 1.5 times.
Yeah. So that's significant in 8 years.
Yeah.
Right?
And the land appreciation is the one where we saw the biggest gain,
Yeah.
really. Like, and that's, again, because the buyer pool expanded. People found out about Kelowna, especially during COVID. Everybody wanted to move to Kelowna, and I think that's still true. People are still wanting to come to Kelowna. They still want to come to BC because of what it has to offer.
So this is something that you need to think of when you're looking at real estate is when you're in a market, you're in it, like I've been in this city since I was 9 years old, like 30 plus years. I've been in here. I've bought real estate here, and it's really easy to look back and be like, oh, I bought that first townhome for $200,000, you know, like, and now it's $700,000. How is it ever going to get more expensive?
Right.
I'm telling you, there are people in Vancouver right now buying townhomes for $1 million bucks going, wait a minute, I can get townhomes in Kelowna for $7?
Yeah.
And I'm out.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So it can go up. And that especially happens when there's lack of inventory and a desirable area. Like, it's one of the most beautiful places in Canada to live.
Yeah, I genuinely think so, yeah.
The more I travel, the more I realize what a really beautiful city we live in and everything it offers.
And I mean, having friends come from Alberta, for example, we just had some friends come from Alberta, and all the things that we take for granted, like the fact that it's not minus 30 today, the fact that we have a lake there that's actually clean and you can swim in.
All the food we can grow
all
here.
the food we can grow. So those things that we've kind of taken for granted in BC and in Kelowna, other people definitely see that.
Okay, well, we all know how much we love Kelowna. That's why we live here. But it's also why it does cost more. We will talk more about this when we get back. Welcome back to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila. I have my co-host today with me, Mr. Andre.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, no problem.
Today we have moseyed around a lot of topics.
Yeah.
It's
been an opinion piece podcast.
An opinion pieced podcast today. I like that. We wanted to just really talk about the landscape of the real estate in general, the people involved in it that makes it go round, buyers, why you buy, why someone's going to sell and move on to the next home.
Why some things are more expensive here than they could be somewhere else.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah.
And you know, I have people come. Obviously, when you work as a builder, you have clients that come from Alberta. I mean, we're Alberta's backyard, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you start talking to them about the cost to build here, and they're, what? Now I know why. I mean, I knew there was a cost difference between the two areas, but there's a lot of things that go into play on why those cost differences are, and why they maintain their value here.
Yep.
And if this is where you choose you want to live, you want to set up shop, you should plan for the long term with your housing purchase.
Yeah.
If you're gonna, wait a year because you think it's gonna come down a little bit more, or interest rates are gonna change a bit more, you're honestly losing a year of equity and stability and security.
Yeah.
And upgrading that home, putting sweat equity into it. So, and if it's a long-term purchase, just like a long-term investment, it's going to have ups and downs in the short picture. But over, the 10 years that you're there, you're going to build a nice little nest egg for yourself.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of touched upon this in other episodes as well. But in regards to like buying for you, make sure you're buying something that suits you. Make sure you're buying in a city and in a place that works for you, and that 10 years down the road you're gonna turn around and be like, hey, I was happy that I bought this. So that doesn't mean you have to necessarily wait for the ideal time, because the ideal time is not necessarily ever gonna come. And then you might be priced out of the market with all the waiting you've done.
Yeah, and the priority might be the location, the city, right? And so if that is the priority, maybe you're getting a fixer-upper.
Yep.
Maybe there is some YouTube videos you're going to have to watch and figure out how to do drywall patches and so on. If that's the priority, right? If you want to live in a city that has a great lifestyle, you're going to be more expensive real estate.
Yep.
And it's going to cost more to live there. So,
and every city has its ups and downs and its pros and cons. Like we look at, we've been looking at Edmonton. Edmonton right now it's great. It's on fire. If that's what I think, at least. But Edmonton's also very tied to oil and gas. And so we've seen what happened in 2012, 2013 when oil and gas didn't do so well. Edmonton kind of collapsed in on itself. So
which directly affected the Okanagan
which
as well.
affected the Okanagan as well. But I mean, we didn't see the dips that we saw in Edmonton and Calgary.
Oh, like actual house prices swinging.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
but if you worked in Edmonton, if you had a job in Edmonton, if that was the place that you needed to be, and you looked over the long-term horizon, well, now you're sitting there laughing. So make sure you're in a place that you want to be in, that you see value in. Make sure that you make the correct purchasing decision and use the tools that we've kind of talked about over the course of this show. But make sure it suits your needs and look for the long term. There's this quote we were talking about before where, us as humans generally, we kind of overestimate what we can do and what things will look like in a year, but we really underestimate what's going to happen and what things are going to look like in 5 to 10 years. So long term is always going to be the play with real estate. Yeah.
Even as a developer builder, we are looking at, long-term projects for people and investors. It's not necessarily about, well, sometimes it's about building that spec home, but you're in a new single-family home development. There is 100 new lots, and you're going in and you're creating new housing for people that are going to come and buy. There can be, gains in that, but a lot of cash goes out in that experience as well, right?
Yeah.
And so if there is a swing in the market, there can be a bit of a risk, but
building and buying in areas that you anticipate to see growth, that's going to be a good kind of hedge against what the market's doing. Because at the end of the day, if an area is primed for growth, and if there's a direction for growth in legislation, which we know impacts a lot of what real estate does, especially nowadays, being aligned with the goals of your city, your municipality, and your, government provincially, make things a lot easier on you.
I guess it's a tough one because there is a lot of reasons why to be scared to buy, right?
There's a lot of uncertainty.
And there's a lot of reasons why you would buy. And it's it's so different on who you talk to, their experiences they had over their lifetime, and why someone would buy, their age has a lot to do with what their purchase would be.
Yep.
If you're buying your home for the first time in your 40s or 50s, you don't have as much working span to pay that off as when you're buying in your 20s or 30s. There's such amount of security that comes out of making that first initial housing purchase early on in your life.
Yep.
And a lot of doors that opens down the road financially, especially when you get into retirement. And even that second home purchase, if you've already developed equity, I can't stress enough to encourage our younger generation to be out there doing what they can to buy homes.
I agree. I really do agree.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, the political parties will change every 4 years.
Yep.
And but people will be living in these cities and having babies and creating more population and leaving other countries and coming to these countries and creating jobs. And so we just naturally keep slowly growing our own economy, and it keeps on going. And so the long-term purchase of that real estate investment is a smart thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this was a doom and gloom show on real estate. It was more just to talk about the landscape of what's going on and recognize that it can feel a bit scary right now. Even in the industry, it's hard to predict what can happen. But if you look at slow growth, continual increases, and long-term planning in your purchasing, just for your everyday purchase,
yep,
real estate's a smart thing to do for long-term security.
I 100% agree.
And generational wealth.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay, well, we sum it up with buy houses, people. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.